Well, it's not too late to get garlic in your garden. If you're here in the Pacific Northwest, particularly in the Portland, Oregon area, the weather has still been okay. It's not freezing in the ground yet. You can get garlic out there. You know, the YouTube gardening community, the Facebook gardening groups, the IG influencers, there's lots of garlic how-to this time of year. What am I going to add to this conversation? Well, I don't have anything technical to add, but if I don't discuss garlic, I'd be leaving out a big part of my fall gardening life. I've already done a video on planting garlic. You can go check it out, but I wanted to kind of repeat here some things for people who may not have gotten their garlic in the ground yet, to give them that extra push and say, hey, you can still do it. I grow a lot of garlic here at PDX Garden Home. I grow it in our north kitchen garden, and I save garlic cloves, mostly the ones that are actually falling apart from the harvest, which is the opposite of the expert advice that you should save your biggest and best bulbs. But hey, I'm greedy. I want to eat my biggest and best bulbs. So I also buy new garlic seed from local nurseries to ensure that I get truly great garlic among everything that I'm harvesting out there. You know, growing up, my dad loved garlic. That's probably where I got it. I remember he was always talking about it, growing it, talking about it at the dinner table. The only direction I ever remember my dad giving my mom when it came to family meals was to make sure to add garlic. Or if we sat down for dinner, he would ask, did you add garlic to that? Elephant garlic was particularly prized, and I grew my own elephant garlic this last season, so I was pretty excited to indulge. I ate several roasted heads all in one sitting. Well, you don't want to know what happened after that. This is where the experts will chime in and tell you that elephant garlic isn't a true garlic, but actually a large bulbing leek. Yes, okay, but it still kind of upset me as if it were garlic. I don't think that makes a difference to my stomach. It's not asking my mouth for a second opinion before overindulging. The experience definitely slowed down my desire to eat straight garlic. Even though elephant garlic isn't actually garlic, I associate it that way. But it didn't extinguish my love of garlic. I'm just getting a little bit better about eating it in moderation. Now, as I think about this, we're in the last part of November, and as I said earlier, it's not too late in our climate to get garlic in your garden in the Pacific Northwest. My beds are already chock full, so in keeping with moderation, I'm going to call it good for this planting season for my garlic. But here's my garlic list, what I planted. For hardneck, I planted German white. For softneck, I planted Transylvania. And I also planted elephant garlic. I don't know if there's actually different varieties of elephant garlic. The one that I got didn't indicate that it was any particular variety, just plain elephant garlic. And finally, I planted a mix of hardneck and softneck cloves left over from last year, but I don't know the variety of those because I didn't keep track. I mean, I could have paid attention to what was hardneck or softneck and separate them that way, but I didn't. I just put all the cloves in one bucket and basket and then put the extra cloves back out there. So that's my garlic adventure. Good luck in your garlic adventure. We'll see how we all do with this in 2022. Well, this bed behind me is a weedy mess, and you might wonder, why would I choose to work on this now? I mean, I've got a lot of beds that are a weedy mess. Why this one in particular? Well, I walk by it every day, so I mean, there's the aesthetic, the how it makes me feel to be in the garden factor to it, right? But also, I've got a bunch of crocuses, and I haven't been super, I've grown a few crocuses here and there, haven't been super successful in getting them, and I was thinking about, well, where can I put the crocuses that I'll really enjoy them? And the light bulb came on, and it was like, oh, you know, this would be a row of crocuses here, like the first thing in spring to come up and bloom just right here, right close to the house. That would be awesome, right? And so that's what I want to plant in there, but I don't, you know, whenever I start working on a bed like that to put something in, I don't like to put something in a dirty bed. So I like to get the bed cleaned out and looking nice, and then I'll put the crocuses in, or kind of at the same time. Like I'll do the weeds, I'll drill the holes, I'll put the crocuses in, and then I'll put some compost on top of it. So that's a project for the day. Clean up the beds behind me here along the deck and plant a couple rows of crocuses, or croci, I don't know what the plural of that is, but I would say it's pretty successful, and it looks good. It feels good after a weekend of gardening that you have something that kind of looks
looks better or looks more cleaned up. At least for me when I'm gardening, I love it when I can put the work in and then I can kind of see results like this that make me feel good about having kind of cleaned something up. So as a dual purpose, clean up the bed, plant the rows of crocus. Well, I just started looking at the water bill that went from July 15th through October 15th, and it wasn't pretty. I suppose it's an indictment of my method of just watering the hell out of everything out here. During the summer months, it was particularly hot, and we had some pretty heat waves that happened this summer. And so during those summer months, I just would water for hours on end, everything all at once. And I didn't see any signs of overwatering, but I also have a lot of compost in these beds, so they're probably draining well, and I'm avoiding like root rot and other problems that would come from other watering, but that doesn't mean that I need to water that much. I've been using an overhead sprinkler system that you'll see out here, and I have it in different zones, and I'll just come along and turn it on manually when I'm out gardening. And I like the main veggie garden back here behind me, I might leave that on for a couple of hours several times a week during the heat of summer. And during the period of time when the temperatures would hover above 80 degrees, and I would gauge how long I'd be leaving it on, because the edges of where the sprinkler was hitting, I would wait to see that they were saturated. So the reason for these overhead sprinklers, the reason I've done it that way, was to save time. I've done drip before, and I grow a lot of veggies and annual flowers. They aren't in the same place every year, so moving drip lines around at the start of every season can be a pretty huge task for a garden of this size. And the problem with sprinklers, though, is that while I'm kind of gauging when to turn them off based on the saturation of the edges, that probably means I'm overwatering near the center of the garden of where the sprinkler is. Not to mention the fact that I'm watering the wood chip paths, and I'm watering the grass areas that could just be left to go golden. So to deal with this and that cost, I'm seriously thinking about hand watering. Is that crazy? I don't have it in me this year for a large infrastructure project to lay down drip or even more sprinklers, perhaps in small, more targeted zones, which I've thought of. I've talked about Charles Dowding a lot. I've seen that his primary method is hand watering in his large garden. And I've heard others talk about that opportunity to really see the garden and enjoy it when you take that kind of responsibility to hand water. I'll still have the sprinkler system set up for backup, so I'm thinking I'll just try to do it and see how long it actually takes. I'm guessing it's going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours per session, and it probably would need a couple of sessions per week in the heat of summer. So yeah, I'm it's a tentative plan. Maybe you'll see me backtrack on that before we get there. But the ultimate win on this plan, of course, would be if I could get my dozen or so whiskey barrels around here. Yes, I have full-size whiskey barrels hanging around the garden. And if I can convert those to water storage containers, then maybe I could capture some rain and save on the water, on some of the water that's not being wasted, the water that's actually useful, saving the water bill there too. And I've heard many commentators say that plants love rainwater, so that might be a good experiment to kind of see if I can do that. We'll see if they like the rainwater from my old whiskey barrels with some whiskey residue in it, right? I do have the resources to pay for some gardening assistance. I do have assistance that helps me with the garden here. We'll pay people, family members and other people, young people to help. And so maybe having them help with hand watering would be the way to go. Philosophically speaking, if it comes down to, a pure trade-off of cost of actually just paying some person to do it, employing somebody versus the cost of wasting water, I would rather pay for that employment. Because you never waste, employing people. That's work that they do, and then they get money, and then they can use that. Philosophically, that's the way I see it. So yeah, I'm going to give that a try here at PDX Garden Home, as maybe a hand watering system, and then we'll see if that works and what it's like. It'll be a good experiment, and then I can maybe putting a more efficient watering system that is not hand watering, but not just simple overhead sprinklers everywhere. I can put that on deck as a project for the following year. All right, well, those are my meditations on the latest water bill.